Welcome back. You're watching live from Paris on France 24. Time now for our daily countdown to the French presidential election. Here with me, as always, is our French politics editor, Mark Perlman. Good evening to you, Mark. And with the press reaction to the political meanderings of the candidates is our media editor, James Creedon. Hello there, James.
Hi, Laura.
Now, we're going to start off, Mark, with the candidates courting the agricultural vote. Now, there aren't that many farmers in France, so why is it so important to win them over?
There are less and less farmers, actually. Their numbers are decreasing. They're less than 8%, around 8%, let's say, of those who vote for elections. But the candidates always court the farmers. It's part of the culture. There is this event, a tremendous event, always the annual agricultural fair in Paris, where all the farmers show their cows, their cheeses, their sausages, you name it.
It's a huge event, isn't it?
All the politicians spend not a couple of minutes. They spend hours there. This year, the socialist candidate, François Hollande, spent 10 hours over there.
Wow, that's a lot of cheese.
That's a lot of cheese, yes. And you have to try everyone's cheese in order to make them all happy. And so today, in the southern town of Montpellier, all or nearly all the candidates, 7 out of 10, went to speak before the main farmers' lobby. Here's our Luke Brown reporting from Montpellier.
1,500 members of the farming community here in Montpellier this Thursday treated the visit of 7 out of 10 presidential candidates. They're supposed to be laying out their plans for the sector, including, notably, about the common agricultural policy. Now, traditionally, this is a very right-wing electorate. 51% voted for Nicolas Sarkozy back in 2007. The president was indeed given a warm welcome, especially when he underlined that he had not made a deal with the farmers' Bête Noire, the Green Party. That's a jibe very much aimed at François Hollande. The socialist candidate, when asked why he had come, repeated he can't simply restrict himself solely to friendly territory. Now, the rural community does represent 3 million voters. That's 8% of the electorate. With just 3 weeks to go until the first round of voting, the very presence of 7 candidates here does underline that every vote does now count.
All right, Luke Brown there. So clearly not a lot of votes at stake here, but the French people do have something of a romantic idea about farmers here, don't they?
Yes, it's part of the folk culture. You know, people have this idea. All the candidates like to have their posters with a rural, countryside behind them and everything. So they do like this. And what's also interesting is that in terms of voting patterns, if, as Luke Brown said, the farmers would have been the only one to vote back in 2007, Nicolas Sarkozy would have been elected in the first round. No need for a second round, the majority of the farmers. But there were some bumps on the road. In the 2008 agricultural fair, Nicolas Sarkozy called one of the farmers who apparently wanted to talk to him a moron. This is a polite way of saying things. Then there was a collapse of the agricultural commodity prices, and the farmers weren't happy. Now, Nicolas Sarkozy is getting the support of around 40% of the farmers, which is way more than all the other candidates and much more than he gets. He gets more or less 30%. His rival, François Hollande, polls 12 to 14%, which is less than half than what he has. So Sarkozy is clearly at ease with the farmers.
Oh, that's interesting. All right, the farmers seem to like him, but what about the rest of the French? How's Sarko doing in the polls right now?
Well, he's improving. He's steadily, slowly gaining ground in a number of polls. It's not earth-shattering, but it's a steady rise, and one of the polls published puts him at 30% in the first round, which is the first time. François Hollande is at 26%, and in round 2, 53% for François Hollande, 47% for Nicolas Sarkozy. It looks like bad news, but it's the narrowest gap we've had between the two candidates in the second round. So Nicolas Sarkozy is improving, and tonight he actually was at a rally where he attacked the left and said François Hollande and all the others shouldn't teach us lesson. They're part of the caviar left, meaning the left pretends to defend the poor, but they actually love the rich.
All right, so he's ahead in the first round and closing the gap in the second round as well. That's important, isn't it? All right, now, James, we've talked about the French obsession with opinion polls. We look at these figures every day. Everything is analysed. A lot of people are asked questions. But The Economist is saying that's all very well, but you're not really talking about the issues.
That's right. The Economist, unsurprisingly, interested in the economy, and they're saying when are French presidential leaders going to start talking about it? You know, they're talking about halal meat, they're talking about Islamism, they're talking about this, that, and the other. But what about the economy? Let's have a look at their front page to come out tomorrow. France in denial, the West's most frivolous election, and as is their habit of late, they've pretty kind of innovative front pages. And here, this is taken from Manet's Luncheon on the Grass.
Right this time, James.
That's right, I said Monet earlier, but I did correct myself. And so you've got Hollande and Sarkozy sitting around just looking very decadent nice. And full stomachs and all that.
Thankfully, they didn't turn the woman into Marine Le Pen.
We hope not, we hope not. Just a couple of details on what they're saying, that François Hollande, if he wins, which seems more likely, wants to create 60,000 teaching jobs at a time when public spending should be cut. Public debt is at 90% of GDP. France's picnickers are about to be swamped by harsh reality, no matter who is president. So they're really wagging their fingers at France and saying, get reality check. You know, the economy is important and you're not talking about it.
They're not impressed with any of the candidates, are they? Now, no. Mark, France wouldn't be France without a political scandal or two. And, of course, the so-called Bettencourt scandal involving the L'Oréal heiress Liliane Bettencourt is still causing some problems for the ruling party, isn't it?
Yes, and more so. It's been a long scandal, complicated one. It basically centers around Liliane Bettencourt, who is the aging and sick heiress of the huge L'Oréal fortune. And she's been essentially, it seems, abused by a number of people. And one of those persons is her former money manager, Patrice Demestre, who's been put under formal investigation on a variety of alleged charges, extortion, and maybe laundering. And the investigating magistrates have locked him in preventive detention, which is very rare for some such financial crimes, and for a week. And so he's demanding to come out. The decision will be taken tomorrow. But why are they putting him in jail, we're told, is that they want him to admit that he was involved in a financial scheme whereby he would bring money from Liliane Bettencourt's accounts in Switzerland back to France. And for what use? It could be maybe to help finance the previous campaign of Nicolas Sarkozy back in 2007.
The famous brown envelopes that everyone was
Well, no
about.
one knows, but they're especially looking at two transfers of 400,000 euros in cash. And in one of them, there are even rumors that Nicolas Sarkozy himself went to the house of Liliane Bettencourt to fetch the money. This is the lots of ifs, and ifs.
Right.
But clearly, this is a problem. And
it's a minefield for them to discuss.
It's a minefield, and the Conservatives are getting nervous. They're denouncing a political vendetta just before the elections. We're 24 days away. And the Prime Minister, François Fillon, went a little bit overboard this morning when he denounced this vendetta.
What does that mean? Does it prove something about the relationship between Patrick Demestre and Nicolas Sarkozy? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Also, maybe we should question the reasons behind this man's imprisonment. Quite shocking, given the laws in France. I immediately regretted saying that. I have my own opinions, but I'm Prime Minister and I am also responsible for our judicial institutions, so I take back what I said.
Oh dear, what's going on with the UMP? That's the second time this week they've got in a tangle on the radio, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Foot and mouth disease.
Foot and mouth disease.
Exactly, and he clearly realized that he had, the judiciary is supposed to be independent from the executive, and he was saying, oh, why is this person in jail? And so this was obviously...
And he had to backtrack.
He had to backtrack on the same radio program, which is very unusual. Obviously, a field day for the socialists. Their candidate, François Hollande, immediately jumped on this.
A Prime Minister must master his language, and so should the President of the Republic. When the issue is a judicial investigation, there is nothing to say or comment on. There are indeed suspicions. It is not up to me to say which way the investigation should go.
So clearly François Hollande is saying, okay, we shouldn't mix everything, but he's also saying, well, there are suspicions, and in an interview with Le Monde today, say if those allegations are true, it is extremely serious. So the socialists are clearly watching this very closely, as is probably Nicolas Sarkozy. Will have to wait if this impacts the campaign.
Okay,
and
all
just
right.
on that note,
Yes.
Mark, just to remind viewers, they can go onto our website,
Yes.
the social media buzz. You can check what topics are trending, and indeed, political scandals could now start to trend a lot more in the next couple of days.
Let's have a look at it then.
You can check here. What you have is which candidates
are.
were more discussed in the last number of days. Nicolas Sarkozy getting more articles posted about him on social media than François Hollande right now. So worth keeping an eye on our France24.com website.
All right, now one youngster is not impressed with any of the candidates at all. Not one of them.
This is a video that came online today. Let's take a look at Charlotte, who was not impressed with any of the candidates.
Tu veux voter?
Non.
Tu veux voter Philippe Poutou?
Non.
Tu veux voter Jean-Luc Mélenchon?
Non.
François Bayrou alors?
Non.
Et François Hollande?
Non.
Bon, tu veux voter Nicolas Sarkozy alors?
Non.
Ah, tu préfères Dupont-Aignan?
Non.
Et Eva Joly?
Non.
Marine Le Pen?
Non.
Tu veux voter Jacques Cheminade?
Non.
Nathalie Arthaud alors?
He seems
very
more terrified
cute.
of Bayrou than Le Pen, which wouldn't be the traditional reaction. But anyway, there you go.
Who knows? James Queenan and Mark Perlman, thank you both very much indeed. That's it for Campaign Chronicles. Don't go away, more headlines coming up right after this.
Bayrou.